So first we need to learn few basics in every programming language. So whenever you want to write a logic, first you need to be aware of the basics of every programming language. The first and most important basic concept is data type. Data type. When you talk about data type, basically in programming languages, when you talk about a language, you will find two types of languages, scripting language and programming language. The best example for scripting language is JavaScript, VBScript, Perl, Shell. These are all scripting languages. If you go to scripting language doesn't contain any data type. Scripting language doesn't, if you take JavaScript, it doesn't contain any data type. Everything has to be declared as var. In all the cases, some common amount of memory will be allocated. But when it comes to programming languages contains proper programming options and proper data types and everything. So when you talk about C Sharp is a advanced object-oriented programming languages. It contains set of data types, advanced programming options, advanced object-oriented programming options. When you talk about a data type, basically whenever you want to store some data, when you want to hold some data within your programming environment, you need to define a data member. You need to define a variable. Once you define a variable, immediately your control will go to memory and create some memory location and allocate some amount of memory in the slot. How much amount of data will be allocated for your variable? So that you have to decide. But coming to data, you'll find different types of data. 2, 2.5, A, song, music, picture. These are all different types of data. When you talk about data, a data can be categorized into three types: structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. Structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data. Okay, so later we'll see about that. So but when you talk about data, so you will find different types of data. Let's say here 2, 2.5, A, ABC, music, picture. So there is a lot of difference from 2 to 2.5. 2 doesn't contain decimal part, but 2.5 contains decimal part. So when it comes to memory, so obviously 2.5 requires some space, extra space. So when you talk about 2.5, it contains decimal part, so it requires some space more than number 2. And when it comes to music, that might require some space more than the first one. So based on the nature of data, type of data, that much amount of memory has to be allocated in the slot. So who will allocate? And how the system will decide how much amount of data has to be allocated to that respective variable? How much amount of memory has to be reserved for that respective variable? So that you will have to decide as a developer. So while designing each and every data member, you should also tell the system about memory allocation and everything. So how do you decide that? So based on that allocation will be done based on your data types. So basically, when you talk about a data type, in C#, each and every data type is considered as object type. Forget about integer, character, float. In C, C++, everywhere, you will see some data types like integer, character, float. Those are all some standard data types. Later we'll see about that. Forget about it. But at a high level, each and every data type is considered as object type. When you talk about object type, so again it has got divided into two categories. Those are going to be value type and reference type. This is very important. Many interviews will ask this question. What is object type, what is value type, and what is reference type? Once again repeat. In C#, each and every data type is considered as object type. It has been divided into two categories. One is value type and another one is reference type. So what is value type and what is reference type? See, irrespective of technologies, when you talk about a memory, when you talk about a memory, internally memory has got divided into two different parts. Every memory will have two different parts. Those are going to be stack memory and heap memory. Stack memory and heap memory. When you talk about memory, whether it is a Java application, .NET or anything, every application runs on different devices. Like my web application runs on iOS, Windows, web, mobile. Like when you talk about device, so when you talk about application, the application can be in different forms. Like let's say if you take Facebook and Facebook Messenger. Facebook is one of the web application, but Facebook Messenger is a Windows based application. You can run these two applications on your mobile. You can access Facebook web application from your mobile. You can also access your Facebook Messenger from your mobile, right? So a device can be anything. So the same applications could also be run on your PC, on iOS, on different devices. A device can be anything. Every device will maintain their own process memory, their own RAM, their own hard disk kind of memory. So when you talk about a memory internally, so logically it has got divided into two parts. Those are going to be stack memory and heap memory. Irrespective of devices, irrespective of platforms, irrespective of operating systems, every memory, a slot has got divided into two different parts. Those are going to be stack memory and heap memory. So what is stack and what is heap? What is there in stack and what is there in heap? So what type of data will be stored under stack and what type of data will be stored under heap? So it is very simple. Have you heard about pointer? Have you ever heard about pointer? In C or C++, anywhere in any programming language?
Yeah.
Yes. So what is a pointer? Why we need a pointer?
I mean, in order to find the address of any
It's
data types.
Okay. Okay.
it stores
Okay.
the value of variable address.
Okay, good. Okay, I'll tell you what is a pointer. Okay, simple. Let's say I have a textbook which contains 1 lakh pages. Okay, I have a textbooks, let's say mathematics or some history. You can take any type of textbook that contains 1 lakh pages. Now I want to read a particular topic in the textbook. Now what will you do? If you start searching all your pages one by one to identify that respective topic, you'll have to see line by line, you have to see page by page, right? You cannot just, if you open the book, you cannot see your topic directly, right? There are some 1 lakh pages. In order to find out a particular topic, you have to navigate through all the pages. You have to search all the pages. So it will consume a lot of time. So generally what we'll do, so first we will go to index page. There you will find all the topics, right? Topic 1 is there in page number 1. Topic 2, which is there in page number 100. Topic 3, it is there on page number 200, right? So generally what you will do, so first we'll go to index page, find out the page number of that respective topic. From there, you can directly go to that particular page, right? If I remove that index page, what will happen? You don't know where it is. You'll have to search all the pages one by one. In the previous case, from the index page, you can directly navigate to that respective topic. But if I remove that index page from that, in order to find out your topic, you don't know where it is. It may be on the 1 lakh page, it may be on the some 1000 or 2000, 3000. But in order to find out that particular topic, you'll have to search all the pages one by one. So it will consume a lot of time, right? But if I keep index page, now what will happen? My search process will become much more simpler. It will reduce a lot of searching time. Just by looking at that index page, I can directly navigate to that respective page, right? So here, what is the index? What is the index page? What is there on the index page? Index page also holds some kind of data, but what is this data? This data contains address of actual data pages. What is the actual data page? By topic. What does index contains? What does the index page contains? It contains topic name and address of that topic. But where is that actual topic? It is there on different page. So when you talk about index, index is nothing but kind of a pointer. What does it contain? It holds address of your actual data page. It holds address of your actual data page. So that index is called as pointer. What is a pointer? Pointer is also a variable which contains address of your actual data location. Right? So in this case, in this textbook, our index page is nothing but pointer. What does it contain? It contains address of your actual data page. So index page contains only references. What is that reference? A reference of your actual data page. But where is the data? My data is there on the actual data page, on 100th page, 200 page, 1000 page. So here also same concept is followed. When you talk about memory, logically memory has got divided into two parts, stack memory and heap memory. So what is stack and what is heap? So stack is nothing but your index page. Heap is nothing but, stack is nothing but your actual data page. Heap is nothing but your index page. When you talk about stack, stack contains physical data locations. Heap contains address of stack data. So all pointer types of variables will be stored under heap. Actual data will be stored under stack. If you want to identify, if you want to pull data of any data member, any location, first you need to go to heap, because heap contains, because when it comes to stack, there might be some millions of locations. If you go to stack directly, like your text box, without having index, if you go to your textbook to find out your topic, you'll have to search all the pages one by one, right? If there are 1 lakh pages, just think about your searching time. It will take a lot of time to find out a particular topic. Same thing will happen here also. If you directly go to stack, there might be some millions of locations in the memory, and yours is one of them. So in order to identify your data member, your location, you'll have to search all those millions of locations. So that's why, to speed up your search process, to avoid this kind of things, so what has to be done? Your approach should be towards heap. First, you need to go to heap. From here, identify the address of your actual data location. Get the address of the location. Once you get the address of location, from here, you can directly go to that respective location. Okay. So when you talk about memory, memory contains two different parts, stack memory and heap memory. Your actual data, the physical data physically will be stored on stack. The reference of these physical locations will be stored under heap. So any questions guys about stack and heap?
No, only as far as you're fine.
Okay, so it's simple. Okay, the concept is very similar to your textbook, index page and actual data page. Your index page is nothing but your heap, and actually your database is nothing but, your textbook page is nothing but your stack. To go to any location, to find out any data location, first you need to go to heap. Heap is nothing but kind of index page. Identify the topic and identify the respective address of the topic. From here, you can directly go to the respective locations of your stack. So that will, reduce a lot of your searching time. It will speed up your search process. Here we have two ways. If you want, you can directly go to stack and search it. Otherwise, you can go to heap and find out your address. From there, you can directly navigate to the stack. So that depends upon your requirement and situation of the scenario. Okay. But if you directly go to stack, obviously you need to spend a lot of time to find out a data member. If you're going from heap, it will speed up your search process because you just need to spend time to just pick up that respective address of the location, right? So once you identify the location, so then it will become very faster. You can directly go to that respective location and pick up your data. So that is the difference between stack memory and heap memory. See, when you talk about our data types, as I said in C#, each and every data type is considered as object type. It has got divided into two categories, value type and reference type. So when you talk about value type, all value type data types are going to be stored on stack. The storage will take place on the stack memory. And when it comes to reference type, the storage will take place on heap memory. So all value types data members will be stored under stack, and all reference type variables, like kind of your pointer variables, all reference type data will be stored under heap memory. So this is not a concept, but as a developer, you should also aware of these kind of things, right? If your application is taking, a lot of time to find out the data and all, if it is degrading your search process, so as a developer, you need to retune your logic, you need to retune your application and programming logic. So in that case, these kind of things will come into the picture. Then you need to identify where exact data is getting stored. Is it getting stored in your RAM or hard disk or somewhere in the file system? If it is a RAM, where exactly it is getting stored? Is it getting stored on the stack or heap? So this level of analysis that every developer should do to retune your application, to increase performance of your application. So that is the reason, as a developer, you should be aware of each and every part of your programming language and the device which is being used by your programming language in order to store data members and all. Okay, so that is the reason, at least you should be aware of these two parts. Okay, so later we will see what is object type, what is value type, and what is reference type. Okay, but do remember that at the high level in C#, each and every data type is considered as object type. Internally, it has got divided into two categories, value type and reference type. When I talk about value type, so the storage is going to be on the stack. When it comes to reference type, it is going to be on the heap. So when you talk about reference type variable, a reference type variable doesn't contain any data, right? When you talk about index page doesn't hold any physical data, but it contains address of the physical data. Here also same thing. A reference is nothing but heap, value is nothing but stack. A heap variable doesn't contain any data, but it holds address of stack data. But again, data will be stored under only stack. It will not be stored under heap. So do remember that a reference type variable doesn't hold any physical data. It holds address of stack variable data. That is the difference between stack and heap. Any questions, guys, so far? Okay. If no, let's move towards the next concept. Now we will see what are the standard data types available in C#. Okay, standard data types. See, when you talk about data, as I said, you will find different types of data. Let's say 2000, 2.5a, some Satyam, dollar, true, false, date. Is there any difference between 2 and 2.5? Yes. 2 doesn't contain decimal part, but 2.5 contains decimal part. So when it comes to memory, so 2.5 might require some space more than 2. It may or may not, but there might be some difference in the storage also. And coming to 2.5 to A, yes, this is a number and this is a character. It might require some less memory than 2.5. And when it comes to Satyam, It contains collection of characters. It might require some space more than this A, right? So as a developer, based on type of input, type of data that is going to be stored in your slot, you'll have to tell the system how much amount of memory has to be reserved for each and every data member. That is a primary responsibility of every developer. As a developer, you should not waste the memory. You should save the memory as much as possible, as much as you can. Your memory is nothing but revenue to the company, revenue to the client. Let's say in your RAM, if the RAM size is very less, the capacity of your RAM, let's say I'm having 2 GB RAM. Whenever you open your first application, let's say I open .NET, so what will happen? It will occupy some part of your RAM memory. Since I opened only one application, so it will be running very faster. Parallelly, at the same time, if you open another application, so what will happen? You cannot see that much amount of speed when you open the second application. There you will find a little difference. When you open your third application, again you'll find a little difference. When you open 4th, 5th, 10 different applications at a time, so what will happen? You will see a lot of difference in the performance, in the process time. Because as you're opening the application, it will occupy your main memory. There is only one process. Now the processor has to serve all these applications simultaneously. It has to make use of the main memory. So if the main memory is full, so what will happen? It will degrade your performance. You'll see a lot of difference in the performance. So that is the reason while writing your logic, while defining your data member, you should also take care of your memory management. But ultimately, whenever you define a variable, it is going to be stored under memory locations in your slot. It will occupy some space in the slot. So that is the reason you should also manage them efficiently. There also you should consider some ideal methodology to manage your data members in the memory. Then only you can expect good amount of performance, good performance everywhere in every piece of your application, your logic. Okay? Okay. So that is the reason your data type will come into the picture, because you should tell the system, boss, if it is a 2, allocate only this much amount of memory. If it is 2.5, this is a little bigger than the first one, that's why allocates this much amount of memory. If it is a character, allocate only this much amount of memory. If it is a string, allocate only this much amount of memory. So proper memory management should be done by the developer. So if you are going to store the data, ultimately you will have to decide which data type has to be considered to store this data. How to store this in the memory. So that kind of thing should be taken care by the developer. Okay. Okay. Now let's see what are the standard data types available in C#. Sorry. As I said, when you talk about data, you will find only 2 types of data. Those are going to be numbers and non-numbers, like numerals, non-numerals. Numbers means all types of numbers, like 2, 2.5, minus 2, plus 2. And non-numerals means other than numbers, other than numbers. Other than numbers means it can be a character, it can be a collection of characters, it can be a special character, it can be date time, it can be a song, it can be music, it can be a picture. But ultimately, at the top level, you will find only 2 categories, numbers and other than numbers. These are called numeric data and non-numeric data. Numeric means numerals, numbers. All types of numbers comes under numeric data. Non-numeric, other than numbers, like your character, collection of characters, special characters, song, music, picture. So other than number, each and every data comes under non-numeric data. So when you talk about data, data can be divided in every programming language, everywhere. Data can be divided into only 2 categories. One is numeric data, other one is non-numeric data. Numeric means numbers. All types of numbers comes under numeric data, and other than number, each and every type comes under non-numeric data. Let's move towards the first one, that is numeric data. When you talk about numeric data, a numeric means numerals, numbers. When you talk about numeric data, so when you talk about numbers, you will find different types of numbers in mathematics. Let's say 2 and 2.5. What is the difference between these two? 2 doesn't contain decimal part, but 2.5 contains decimal part. So there is some difference between this number and this number. So based on this difference, so what they have done, again they have categorized numbers into two different categories. Those are going to be integer and decimal. So this type of numbers, a number which doesn't contain decimal parts, comes under integer category. A number which contains decimal part, real part, floating part, comes under decimal. Numbers are divided into two categories, integer and float. All types of numbers which doesn't contain any decimal part comes under integer. If the number is having decimal part, that comes under decimal category. So if you are going to store 2, what has to be done? You will have to decide what type of data it is. What data type has to be considered while defining my variable. Because based on this type, system will allocate only this much amount of memory. Let's say if you define it as integer in C or C++, what will happen? It allocates only 2 bytes of space. In C or C++ or Java, if you define anything as decimal or float, it allocates 4 bytes of space. In case of integer, it allocates only 2 bytes. If you define it as float, it allocates only 4 bytes. So based on the type of data, system will allocate only that much amount of memory. So that is the reason your data type will come into the picture. So you should tell the system based on your requirement. Okay. So as I said, so this type of numbers comes under integer and this type of number comes under decimal. Let's move towards the first category, that is integer. Integer. In C or C++, whenever you define any data member as integer, immediately it will go to memory, allocates 2 bytes of space. See, here I have a scenario. In C, in one of the scenario, I am going to store number 2. Number 2. What is the type of this number? It is an integer. If I want to store number 2, now what has to be done? My data member should be defined as integer. My data member should be defined as integer. Once I define it as integer, so what will happen? Immediately it allocates 2 bytes of space. In another scenario, I am going to store 2000. What is it 2000? This is also one of the integer. So in case of 2000 also, we should define it as integer. Once you define it as integer, so what will happen? Same amount of memory will be allocated. Again it allocates 2 bytes of space. In another scenario, I am going to store 2 lakhs or 20,000. 20,000 is also one of the integer. So in third case also, it should be defined as integer. Again, same amount of memory will be allocated. See, if you look into these 3 scenarios, where is the smallest integer, small, big or biggest integer? In all the cases, your data type should be defined as integer. And in all the cases, the same amount of memory will be allocated. See, when it comes to 2, it is the smallest number. It may not require 2 bytes of space. It might require only half byte or 1 byte, but still it should be defined as integer. Once you define it as integer, again same 2 bytes of memory will be allocated, but it requires only half byte. So what about remaining 1.5 byte? It will be wasted. This is for only one user. But when it comes to real-time applications, you will be defining some thousands of variables. For each and every user, all those 1000 variables will be recreated. For one variable, you are wasting 1.5 byte. If you are going to define similar kind of variables, 1000 similar kind of variables, so what will happen? It is going to be 1000 into 1.5 byte. Around 2000 bytes of memory will be wasted. This is for only one user. Just when it comes to public sites, think bigger. When it comes to public sites like your Facebook, some crores of people will be accessing your application at a time. If 1 crore hits comes to your application at a time, so what will happen? For each and every user, this much amount of memory will be allocated. If 1 crore hits comes to your application, so what will happen? The same set of variables are going to be recreated for each and every user. So the same set of variable will be recreated for each and every user. So it is going to be recreated 1 crore times. Each set will, for each and every data member set, we are going to waste 2000 bytes of memory. Just when it comes to 1 crore load, 1 lakh load, it is going to be 1 crore into 2000, 1 lakh into 2000. Just think about your memory. So a lot of memory which will be there. And as I said, if the memory is full, if your main memory is full, so what will happen? It will also slow down your process. It will degrade performance of your application. So that is the reason what C# has done. In C or C++, doesn't matter whether you're going to store small, smallest, big or biggest. In all the cases, it should be defined as only int. There are no alternate options available for integer. But we have seen few disadvantages over here. In case of smallest number, we don't actually require 2 bytes of space, but still C and C++ system allocates the same amount of memory. So that is the reason. So to avoid this kind of problem, what C# has done, again, they have divided integer into 3 different categories. Int 16, int 32 and int 64. Again, it has got divided into 3 categories. Those are going to be int 16, int 32 and int 64. If you are going to store smallest number, now you don't have to worry about it. Define it as int 16. The range is going to be -2 power 16 to +2 power 16. If you are going to define some big numbers, define it as int 32. The range is going to be -2 power 32 to +2 power 32. And if you are going to store biggest integers, then define it as int 64. So proper memory management has been handled in C#. In C, in all the cases, we should define it as integer. But here, we have seen a lot of memory wastage. But here, you don't have to worry about that. If you are going to store smallest numbers, just define it as int 16. Only that much amount of memory will be allocated. There will be no memory wastage. If you are going to store some middle level, some big numbers, define it as int 32. If you are going to store biggest numbers, define it as int 64. Now integer can be managed properly in C#. Any questions, guys, so far?
Yeah, Ravindra, I got one question. Like you said, previously in C, when we define A as int, 2 bytes is allocated for that, and when we give a smaller number, the memory is wasted. In this case, int 16 is 2 power -16 to 2 power 16, right? Memory allocation.
That is the range of int 16. I mean, okay. It can take, the range is going to be from, let's say, I define my variable as int 16. I want to store some 10 million number. You need to design where this can be accommodated into int 16. So based on that, based on your number, the size of your number, so you'll have to choose the respective data type. So here, I mean -2 power 16 to +2 power 16. Just calculate it. 2 power 16, 2 into 2 into 2 into 2, how much it comes? That is the range of int 16. So it can take from -2 power -2 power 16 to +2 power 16. That is the range of int 16. That much of number can be stored into your int 16. So between this range, you can store any number into int 16.
Okay.
Okay.
So now if we select a number 3 or 3 or 4, so
that is very small number, right? So just to let you know the difference between these three, I just took the simple example, 2000 and 20,000. This is a kind of simple example. But coming to real-time application, if you are working on banking applications or insurance applications, right? So you'll be reaching some, biggest numbers. Let's say 1 crore millions. Can we accommodate that number in 2016? Arvind,
Yeah, I'm figure it out.
right? 100 crore millions, right? There might be a,
Yeah, it cannot be possible. Like my question is, if you select a smaller number, is that int 16 takes only the memory which is required for that number, or the whole thing? You are saying like it can accommodate a large number. Then if you select a smaller number, then the memory is
that's what I'll tell you. In C, there are no options available. Whenever you want to store 2 millions, 100 crores millions, 1000 crores millions. In all the cases, it should be defined as int only, right? But here at least we have options, right?
Yes.
If you want to store 2, it should be defined as integer. If you want to store 2 millions, it should be defined as integer. If I want to store 100 crore millions also, it should be defined as integer. So what will happen? In all the cases, the same amount of memory will be allocated. But here, we have an option, right? If you are going to store smallest number, go for, the lowest unit. What is that? Int 16. Right? In C, in all the cases, that same amount of memory will be allocated. But in case of that lowest number, we may not require that much amount of memory. So there you'll see a lot of memory wastage. But here, we have 3 different options. Did you understand the difference?
Yeah, I got it. But still, I'm still confused. Like, how come it's so reliable compared to the previous thing?
Not reliable, like, like rather than allocating the same amount of memory in all the cases, they divided that into 3 categories. In this range, allocate only this much amount of memory. In this range, allocate only this much amount of memory. And in this range, allocate only this much amount of memory. So int 16 is going to be standard. It is going to be constant. It cannot be changed. From minus 2 power 16 to plus 2 power 16, you can, if you store any number, it will allocate same amount of memory. Whatever is allocated for int 16, only that fixed amount of memory will be allocated to in this range. And some amount of memory is allocated to int 32. So in the range of minus 2 power 32 plus 2 power 32, I mean, if the number size exceeds int 16 range, then it will go to next slot, that is int 32. So whatever the amount of memory is allocated for int 32, so then that much amount of memory will be allocated to the respective variable. So don't look at these 2,000 and 2 lakhs. That is another simple example. Just to let you know about the difference between smallest and biggest, I just took this example. So don't make your assumptions based on only this. Okay, in C or Java or C++, right? Where is a small number, smallest number, biggest number? In all the cases, you need to go through only one option, that is int, right? But here, at least they have provided 3 different options to manage your memory efficiently. If your data is falling in the range of int 16, define it as int 16. Only that much amount of memory will be allocated. There you can save some memory. Let's say my data is falling in the range of int 16, but I defined it as int 32. So what will happen?
Memory is wasted.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's say my data falls in the range of int 16, I defined it as int 64. What will happen? Lot of memory wastage will be there, right? The same thing will happen in case of C, C++ and Java. Whereas int 16 range, int 32 or int 64, in all the cases, it allocates the maximum amount of space. What is the maximum amount of space? Int 64. So in int, in all the cases, whether it is int 16 range, int 32 or int 64, it can be any type of number. In all the cases, the maximum amount of memory will be allocated. That is the reason you will see a lot of memory wastage over there. But here, at least we can segregate based on our requirement. If it is falling in the range of int 16, better defined as int 16. It is falling in the range of 32, defined as 32. Only that much amount of memory will be allocated. Okay? Is that clear?
Yeah, okay. I got it.
And next, decimal. When it comes to decimal, again, small decimal, smallest decimal, big decimal, biggest decimal. In C, C++ and Java, it can be any type of decimal. In all the cases, you should define it as float. In all the cases, you should define it as float. Whether it is a special floating number or floating number, small or smallest or big or biggest, in all the cases, you should define it as only float, because there is only one option available to support decimal values, that is float. Once you define it as float, in all the cases, the maximum amount of memory will be allocated. But in case of smallest, what will happen? A lot of memory wastage will be there. So that is the reason. So what Microsoft has done, so they also provided some kind of flexibility over decimal. So here also, based on your requirement, you can decide. When you talk about decimal, decimal has categorized into different categories. Those are going to be single, decimal, double, and float. Single, decimal, double, and float. Same. If you are going to store smallest floating numbers, choose your data type as single. If you are going to define some middle level, some big decimal, choose it as decimal. If you are going to store biggest decimal numbers, then choose it as double. And if you are going to store special type of floating numbers, some floating numbers contains characters, let's say 1.23f, that is called special type of floating number. The decimal part contains some characters, that is called special type of floating numbers. So to accommodate special type of floating numbers, yeah, they have designed one more data type, that is called float, which allows you to store combination of number and decimal characters. Okay, so this is something about your decimal. So as I said, when you talk about data can be divided into two types: numeric data, non-numeric data. So coming to numeric data, again it has got divided into two categories: integer and decimal. Again, integer has its own set of data types. It has three different types of data types. Again, integer can be implemented, that can be divided into three categories: int 16, int 32, and int 64. And coming to decimal, again, decimal has got divided into two categories: single, decimal, double, and float. This is something about your numeric data. And let's move towards the next one, that is non-numeric data. Non-numeric means non-numeral. So other than numbers, each and everything comes under this category. Character, collection of characters, special character, date, time, some logical values, picture, image, song. So except numbers, remaining all other data types comes under non-numeric data. When you talk about non-numeric data, it can be divided into different categories. Some of them are going to be character, string, boolean, date, time. When you talk about a character, the capacity of character is single character. It holds only one character at a time. Like this. See here, you can see single quote A, single quote. What is this? This is called character. This is called character. When it comes to name, your name will have group of characters, collection of characters. So if you want to store a single character, then better go through character data type. If you want to store group of characters, let's say your name will have collection of characters which cannot be accommodated into character data type, then your approach should be towards string. So there is a lot of difference. So when it comes to memory, you'll see a lot of difference between character and string. When it comes to character, it allocates only 1 byte of memory, but when it comes to string, it will be more than character. So when you talk about string, it allows you to store collection of characters, group of characters. There is no limitation in number of characters. And next one is Boolean. So when it comes to logical gates, if you take any electronic device, every electronic device has been implemented using a concept of logical gates. You can take any logical gate, any kind of complex logical gate. So the final outcome of every logical gate is going to be one Boolean value, one logical value. That can be either true or false or 1 or 0. Right? Every electronic device, you can take any logical gate. You might have seen this in your while studying your master's or bachelor degree. The final outcome of every logical gate is going to be, every electronic device is going to be only one value that can be either 1 or 0, or you can call it as true or false. If it is 1, we call it as true. If it is 0, we call it as false. So ultimately, the final outcome of every device, it can be a computer, it can be any kind of electronic device. The final outcome of every device is going to be a Boolean value that is going to be either 1 or 0 or true or false. This is a special type of value which is called Boolean. So to accommodate this kind of results, Boolean results, so C# has implemented a special data type called Boolean, where you can store Boolean values. It can be 1 or 0, true or false. Next one is date time. Date time. See, every country will follow their own date time standards. Let's say coming to India, first we write date then month, but coming to US, first they write month then date, right? So this date formats are going to be different from country to country, region to region. So to accommodate all kinds of data, so what Microsoft has done, they've designed a special data type to accommodate all types of date formats, that is called date time. Date time. And coming to song music, there is no separate data type called song music for your song music and picture, right? So string is very, very powerful data type. No programming language is providing separate data types to store your image, picture and song. Ultimately, end of the day, it can be a song, it can be a picture. So these are called unstructured data. Song, music, picture, these are called unstructured data. So every unstructured data will be stored in the form of a string. So string is very, very powerful. It accommodates everything. You can store a picture, you can store a song, you can store a movie. So anything can be converted into string and stored in the memory. Okay, so every unstructured data in most of the applications, real-time applications, every unstructured data will be stored in the form of a string. That's why string has become very, very powerful. In string, you can store anything. You can store a number. Even your numbers can also be stored inside a string. So that is the power of string data type. Okay. So any questions, guys, so far? Okay. So this is something about your standard data types. We have seen what is value type, reference type. We also have seen the memory management inside every device. Then we have discussed stack and heap, difference between stack and heap, and we also have seen different standard data types available in C#. And next one is CLR standards, common language runtime. In the first class, we have discussed about CLR, right? So as I said, CLR is one of the, we used to call it as heart of .NET framework because it plays one of the important key role in your .NET application. CLR is the only one which makes your application platform independent. It acts as a mediator between your code and third-party operating system. This will take care of converting your compiled code into target operating system understandable code. So this we have already discussed in the first class. So coming to CLR standards, this is not a concept, but as a developer, so you should also aware of these concepts. So later we will see why we need CLR standards, why are we discussing about CLR standards. Okay, so first let's see what are the different CLR standards available in C#. Okay, so when you talk about CLR, CLR supports only two types of standards. Those are going to be common type system and common language specification. This is very, very important. Many interviewers will ask this question. What is CTS and what is CLS, or what are the standards of CLR? When you talk about CLR, common language runtime, it comes with two different unique standards. Those are going to be common type system and common language specification. Let's move towards the first one, that is CTS, common type system. When you talk about common type system, what is common type system? What are the standards of common type system? So it's very simple. When you talk about CTS, it supports all types of data. It supports signed data types like +2, -2. Some numbers contains sign. It contains signed data types. It also supports unsigned data types, a number without sign. It supports user-defined data types also. In the first class, we have discussed the hierarchy maintained inside the library. There we have discussed the concept of data member function, user-defined data type like class, structure, interface, right? So when you talk about user-defined data type, so it can be a class, it can be structure, it can be anything. So later we will see more about it. But when you talk about CTS, CTS also supports different types of user-defined data types, and it also supports pointer type. So basically, CTS supports each and everything. It supports signed data types, it supports unsigned, it supports general data types, it supports user-defined data types, it also supports pointer type. When it comes to CLS, common language specification, here you can see common language specification. CLS is subset of CTS. CLS doesn't support all the standards which are supported by CTS. CLS supports only few standards that are supported by your CTS. That's why I'm saying CLS is subset of CTS. When you talk about CLS, CLS supports only signed data types and user-defined data types. It doesn't support any other data types. It doesn't support unsigned data types. It doesn't support pointer types. It just supports only signed and user-defined data types. It doesn't support any other data types. That's why I'm saying CLS is subset of CTS. Coming to CTS, it supports each and every data type. But coming to CLS, it supports only few data types. It supports only signed and user-defined data type, but it doesn't support any unsigned or pointer type. So why are we discussing this? Is it useful while writing your program, while structuring your logic? No. Why we need the standards of CLR? See, as I said, in the future, as of now, we have only 4 programming languages provided in .NET. Those are C#, VB.NET, VC++, and F#. But in the future, there are around 300 languages are going to be integrated with your .NET framework. In order to integrate any language with the .NET framework, that should support minimum of CLS standards. If you develop your own programming language, yes, your language can also be integrated with .NET framework. It is open for all, not only C, C++, and COBOL. If you have created your own programming language, you could also integrate your language with the .NET framework. So that is the beauty of .NET platform. But it should satisfy all CLS standards. CLR has 2 standards, CTS and CLS. Your language should satisfy at least CLS standards. Then only it can be included into your .NET framework. If that doesn't satisfy at least CLS standards, it is not eligible for your .NET framework. You cannot integrate your language with .NET framework. So as I said, in the future there are around 300 plus languages are going to be included into .NET framework, like C.NET, COBOL.NET, Pascal.NET. So that is the reason. So Microsoft has designed some standards like CTS and CLS. Okay. So whenever you want to include any language into .NET framework, so that should satisfy a minimum of CLS standards. If that satisfies CTS, it is going to be very powerful. If your language satisfies CTS standards, it is going to be very powerful. But it should satisfy at least of CLS standards. Okay. So coming to C#, VB.NET, so these 2 are CTS based language. Coming to C# and VB.NET, these are CTS based language. It supports all types of data. So not only C# and VB.NET, all .NET languages. The 4 .NET languages supports CTS standards. It supports everything, every data type. So our C# comes under CTS category. But do remember that in the future, if you want to integrate any programming language with your .NET framework, it should satisfy minimum of CLS standards. Any questions, guys? Okay. Okay, so this is something about your data types. So in the next class, we are going to start with few more, basic concepts. Okay, so there we will see what is the different input and output statements are available in C#, how to implement them, how to write an input statement, how to write an output statement. An input statement can be implemented. So I think you might have already implemented few examples in C or C++, right? Do you have any basic knowledge of C and C++? Okay. Okay. No problem. If you are not having knowledge, also fine. Okay. You don't need to worry about it. Because I'll be covering, all the basics of programming language. Okay. In the next class, we'll see. So what are the different input and output statements are available in C# and how those can be implemented in different ways in C# language. And after that, we'll start writing some basic examples in C# environment. Okay. Okay, guys. So we'll meet tomorrow at same time. So if you have any questions, let me know before we wrap.